This is the document that has been agreed today, a document that actually was agreed in July, and I think that tells you something about this document. When you have difficult documents, they're always argued over till the last minute. The fact that this document was agreed so far in advance, I think, shows you that it's not something that really goes very far forward from where we are at the moment. And even Ban Ki-moon, in an unguarded moment a couple of days ago, said that this document could have gone further. Let's discuss this now with the Secretary-General of Amnesty International, Salil Shetty. Salil, this document, what do you make of it?
We've called this whole summit and the document an abject failure. I mean, we're dealing with one of the most extraordinary, serious crises in the world. 65 million people displaced, 20 million of them refugees. This has been going on for years now. Ban Ki-moon said 6 months ago that let's resettle 10% of the most vulnerable people. And now we have this document which is full of empty words, not a single concrete action.
We do, though, have a second meeting, a leaders' summit it's called, and one of those leaders is President Obama. I'm told it's a pay-to-play summit. You have to come up with something, some sort of pledge if you're going to speak at that. That's taking place in 24 hours' time. Do you have slightly higher hopes for that?
Well, that summit is, clouded in secrecy. We don't really know anything. Civil society are not allowed inside. But, we do believe that if the UN has failed, if the Security Council has failed to deal with the refugee question, then a core group of countries should come together, should resettle 10% of the population, should deliver the humanitarian financing required, and establish a system of global responsibility sharing. I mean, we have a situation where 10 out of the 20 million refugees are now in places which are relatively poor, just because they happen to be the neighbors, Lebanon, Jordan, Turkey, and there's a limit to what they can do. So absolutely we need a fairer system of global responsibility sharing.
As you're well aware, though, all of the leaders attending this high-level week in New York have populations, and it's not particularly popular to resettle refugees.
That's not true, James. We've done extensive surveys of, publics in so many countries, and almost 2/3 of them are ready and willing to take refugees. There's no question that about 1/3 of them who are against it, but ultimately a leadership test. Look at what Prime Minister Trudeau has done in Canada. Harper, before him, kept telling us that Canadians don't like refugees. Canada is resettling 25,000. We need leadership. Merkel is fighting a very difficult battle to show leadership. The German population is not fully with her, but there's enough people in those countries. But, ultimately what's going to happen if these people are out there? All you're doing is to breed more terrorism, more insecurity. They say they don't let people in because they'll feel insecure. But what you need to do is to isolate those people who are causing the violence and embrace those who are fleeing from that violence. We are doing the reverse.
One of the places they're fleeing from is Syria. That's got more refugees than anywhere else. I'd like to ask you about the developments that we're seeing on the ground in Syria. It's a pretty confused picture, but the airstrikes have started again. It seems that some sort of aid convoy has been hit. The UN and the Red Crescent now investigating those reports. What's your reaction?
Well, I think the main issue in Syria, on the refugee front first, since we're talking about the refugee question, over 85% of Syrian refugees are just housed in the neighboring countries. So, what I described as the overall refugee crisis and the lack of sharing of responsibility of rich countries plays out exactly the same in the case of Syria. Now, coming to the question of aid convoys and the so-called ceasefire, in my view, the problem in Syria is simply the lack of accountability, because people just get away with this. People get away with bombing, killing. Now, it started with the Assad regime. Now, unfortunately, all sides are involved in crimes under international law, but they're not accountable. The Security Council plays politics, the regional powers are playing politics, and Syrians are paying the price.
Salil Shetty, the Secretary-General of Amnesty International, thank you for joining us here on Al Jazeera, where we continue to monitor developments here at the United Nations. We're working the phones, trying to get more information on what happened in Aleppo, trying to get you details from the various humanitarian agencies. A confused picture. We're hoping it'll become clearer as the day goes on.
James Bass at the UN headquarters.